The SBA just released an 8-page long document that covers every single question you possibly could have about the EIDL programs. So I wanted to take this document, piece apart the parts that are most interesting or that you might not already know the answers to, and then explain it with some more context in plain English. And I apologize if I seem a little bit off. I'm a little bit under the weather, but I wanted to make sure to get this out because this just happened. And if this helps one person get their EIDL, I will be happy. So let's jump over to the computer here and we'll start breaking this thing down. So I'll have this linked in the description as well, but this breaks down 7 different sections about the EIDL program, and then question by question, there's certain things that haven't been answered by the SBA, with the exception of like me and other news sites reaching out to the SBA and saying, hey, what's going on with this situation? Everything's basically addressed in this program. So they start out by saying the SBA does not charge any fees to an applicant. You might receive emails or offers from third parties that will assist you with your application, but the SBA is not going to charge any fees. I highlighted this because this is an issue. All over in the comments, I'm sure you've seen like SBA agent so-and-so or like fake Instagram pages about me. That is not me. 99.9% of these are scams. Do not respond to them. Report them. They're scams. You can fill out this application by yourself. I promise you, you shouldn't have to pay anyone to do it for you. You don't need to. So just be careful with the scams. All right, what are the loan terms? A COVID EIDL is a loan that must be repaid. I highlighted this because it's very important. I've seen in comments so many times people saying like, I hope the EIDL is forgivable, or saying, I bet the EIDL will be forgivable, or just thinking that it's forgivable. It is not forgivable. The odds that it ever becomes forgivable are extremely, extremely slim, not something you want to bank on whatsoever. It is not like the Paycheck Protection Program. It is not forgivable. It has to be repaid. So be careful. From the very beginning, I've warned people, be careful. Do not get a loan unless you need the loan for your business. Otherwise, you're just going to be filled with debt. And you don't want to be filled with debt. On this channel, we want you to increase your net worth. Okay, what are the terms and rates? Businesses, 3.75%, fixed for 30 years. Payment deferral. So the loan term, again, is 30 years, but payments are deferred for 18 months. But it's important to note that interest is not deferred. So even though you're not paying anything on your loan for a year and a half, interest is building up. So this is why I've recommended many times, don't get a larger loan than you absolutely need. For 2 reasons. First, because you're paying interest. You don't want to pay interest on $500,000 for a year and a half. Even at 3.75%, that adds up. And you can increase the loan amount later if you need to. You can increase it later, so don't get the maximum amount unless you actually need that amount. Not financial advice, but just be financially smart. So you may make prepayments at any time without penalty. That's good to know. Collateral. $0 to $25,000, no collateral required. Between $25,001 up to $500,000, you do need to have collateral through your business's assets. No lien on real estate unless that helps out you as the applicant. Personal guarantee between $0 and $200,000, no personal guarantee. Over $200,000, between $200K and $500K, every single business owner who owns at least 20% needs to do a personal guarantee. So that's something you want to consider. If you have business partners, if you're in business, if you have one of these large loans, you want to consider that with the personal guarantee. Credit score required, a minimum of 570. That has dropped from the beginning of the program, so that way the program was open up to more people. What can I use the loan proceeds for? I was actually surprised with the language they used here. It was not as strict as I expected, but I still want you to be careful. So let's just go over this real quick. Borrowers may use the COVID EIDL working capital loan proceeds to make regular payments for operating expenses, to pay business debt incurred at any time, including business credit card debt, payroll, rent and mortgage for your business, utilities, and any other ordinary business expenses. You may not use the funds to expand your business. Now, I've talked to the SBA in the past, and they explicitly said you can't use this to refinance debt. You can't use this to buy assets. It has to be for regular expenses. Now, it doesn't say anything about assets in here, but I would be extremely careful about even considering purchasing assets with one of these loans, because they have said it in the past, even though it's not in this FAQ, be very careful about buying assets. It's supposed to be for day-to-day expenses for your business. That's the easiest way to think of it, day-to-day expenses. Can this loan be forgiven? They say no again. What is the deadline to file an application? The end of this year, December 31st, 2021. Apply as soon as possible if this program is a good fit for you, because the processing time can take quite a bit. What are the other eligibility requirements in order to receive this EIDL loan? So the credit score of 570, have to be in business or there's evidence of investment to be in business before January 31st, 2020. All owners of 20% or more of the business must have either an EIN or a social security number. Can I apply for the EIDL funds to start a business? I've received this question hundreds of times. You cannot. It has to be started or there's a significant investment to start before January 31st, 2020. Am I eligible to receive assistance through other programs like the Paycheck Protection Program, Restaurant Revitalization Fund, SVOG? Yes, you can. You can receive both the EIDL and these other programs if there's other programs open, which this doesn't really apply so much at this point in time. What documents do you need to apply? If you were in operation before the beginning of 2020, you need to have your 2019 tax return, which most everything is based on that for the EIDL. If you have your 2020 tax return, you can submit that as well. Your IRS form 4506T, which you complete that online, they submit that to the IRS. This is going to be for your 2019 return. So you need to have that 2019 return submitted for the 4506T to actually pull anything from the IRS. And this can take some time. This is one of the issues that is taking forever with these EIDL loans. Now, if you started being in operation in 2020, between January 1st, 2020 and January 31st, 2020, you can use alternative documents instead because you don't have a 2019 tax return and you likely don't have a 2020. If you have a 2020 tax return, you can use that. But if you don't, then you can use other documentation. Evidence that you were in organization stage include business licenses, contractual agreements, purchase orders for machinery and equipment, any kind of evidence that you are in business. How much can I borrow as a small business? If you open prior to 2019, here is the secret sauce formula that they use for calculations. It's really not that complicated. So here's the formula. 2019 gross receipts minus your 2019 costs of goods sold. This gives you kind of a profit figure. You take that figure, which would be like your annual profit of some sort, kind of like a gross profit. Then you multiply that by 2 to equal 24 months. 24 months worth, and that is the loan size. Now, if you opened during 2019, or if you opened between January 1st, 2020 or January 31st, 2020, you're going to take a monthly average of this gross profit type figure, and then you're going to multiply that by 12 to get the yearly amount, and multiply that by 2 to get the 24-month amount, to base that on averages because you don't have a complete year in these figures. Pretty simple. What lines on my tax return should I use to enter my gross receipts, cost of goods sold, or expense information on my COVID EIDL application? To not bog everyone down who's already completed the application, you can just pause this and check out this chart if you need the specifics here. And then 18, what can I do to speed up the processing time of my application? We've covered this before, but you can reduce the total time it takes for your application to be reviewed by responding quickly to SBA requests, so just make sure you monitor your email inbox. Also, speaking of emails, I've started a daily newsletter. I realize that I spend so much time covering the news on just besides things like the EIDL, but stocks, crypto, general news, real estate news, and I have started a newsletter. Now, the newsletter is still kind of getting pieced together, but if you want to be a part of that newsletter once it has a full open, I'll have a link down in the description so you can join the list. To join that once it is completely open, you'll want to do that for some more quick bites every single day. It's going to be like short form kind of witty content. Join that, link down in the description. So you can just make sure that you're responding to your emails, make sure that you're opening my newsletter once I send it, and make sure that you're signing all documents, make sure that you're submitting the documents that are requested of you, and they're saying that this will speed up. Pretty common sense. Make sure that your calculations are correct. If there's a disparity in your numbers that you're reporting versus your tax return, this can cause significant delays in your application time. How do you request an increase on your loan? You can do so through the COVID EIDL portal. Now, I'll have this entire document linked in the description of this video, and you can just click the links here if any of these links are applicable to you. What can I do if the COVID EIDL application was declined? So first, confirm that you meet all of the eligibility. So you need to have 500 or fewer employees, a credit score of 570, and be in operation on or before January 31st, 2020. 2020. And second, you can apply for reconsideration via the process outlined in your decline letter. It gives you all the steps in your decline letter. And then after you submit for reconsideration, this is new to me. I have not seen the SBA say this. After you submit for reconsideration, talk to your local SBA office and have them help you change anything on your application in order to increase the odds that you get funded here. Now, there's a ton of funding left for the EIDL loan program. Even though they shrink down some funding for the EIDL grants, all the funding's still there for loans. So there's funding there. Utilize your local SBA office. Again, this link is clickable. This document will be in the description. What are the most common reasons for decline on these? And I just highlighted one so we don't spend all day reading this. During the review process, there were more than one items that were reviewed that caused the SBA to question the validity of certain information in the application. This can occur as a result of a failed identity verification, international IP address, client device associated with fraud, or high-risk IP addresses. Now, the reason I highlighted this is because there's obviously a lot of room for error here, where if the SBA thinks for whatever reason your application was suspicious based on one of these criteria, you could have been denied even though you're like, I'm sitting in Chicago, I'm not at an international IP address. You know, glitches, issues happen. You could have fallen in one of those, and that may be the issue. So if you get declined, make sure that you file for reconsideration, because it might be some dumb system error that declined you. Business activities that are not eligible. I highlighted this because not everyone is going to realize that not all businesses can get these loans. So payday lending, cash checking, gambling, casinos, adult entertainment, which that's kind of ridiculous that, you know, whatever. Pawn shops, real estate developers, insurance companies, and illegal activity, which obviously illegal activity. Economic injury not substantiated. So you need to actually have been impacted negatively by the pandemic to get this loan. And I suspect a lot of people may apply because they have like a gig job or something like that, but maybe your gig job wasn't actually impacted, or the amount of money that you made wasn't actually impacted, and you could be denied the loan because of that. Or because you received the $1,000 grant back in 2020, and that was more than the economic injury that shows on your document. So either of those could be a reason that you were declined here. Loan application status. How long will it take for my loan increase application to be reviewed? Of course, they don't give us an actual time, unfortunately. And they just say the majority of the backlog applications will be closed out by August 2021. Now, this says the majority of, where if we think back to, I think it was last week, they said all of, so it's a little bit less definite already. I would be surprised, personally, if all of these are done by August 2021, but we shall see. Maybe they'll surprise us. It's been moved over to a different department. It could happen. Not going to say it's impossible. Unlikely, yes. Impossible, no. What are the program's record-keeping requirements? Now, this one made me scratch my head a little bit, because it says you must retain your, sorry, I'm laughing. You must retain tax returns and financial records for the loan for 3 years. What's weird about this is the loan term is 30 years. And I've asked in the past, like, okay, you, the SBA, say that we need to spend these EIDL loans on specific things. Is there ever going to be a check? How does this work in the back end? 30 years from now, you can ask for receipts. And they didn't directly answer, but they said, like, we've processed more loans this year than our entire lifespan, period, which basically implies, like, it's very unlikely that that happens. But to say that you keep your records for 3 years when the loan term is 30, there's 27 years in between here. I don't know. Seems kind of odd to me. I'm just telling you the information that is on here. So that's really the important things that are on this document. I hope that this was helpful. If you enjoyed this, just make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you join the waitlist for the newsletter down below. If you do anything today, do that. And yeah, thanks again for watching, and hope you have a profitable day.